Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. So first up for T&D today, we have, of course, the Help It's Again mug featuring Caduceus. This is the, if you're listening, this is the white mug with Caduceus sinking in the pit, as opposed to the black mug that has the black text on it, that I also really like. Felt appropriate to have Caduceus as a reference to Critical Role here. Because we are obviously talking about a Critical Role thing today. But inside of it, we have some Throat Comfort Yogi tea. Hopefully, it doesn't sound like it too much, but I have quite a bit of burn going on in the back of my throat right now because I have been doing a lot of tech. I work in live production, and so I've had tech for like 3 weeks straight at this point, coming up on a month. No, you can stay over there. The cat is trying to walk across my desk. So the back of my throat has just been a little bit more raw than normal. But that is not the point. That is not what you guys are here to listen to me talk about. What you're here to listen to me talk about is Critical Role's Call of the Netherdeep. The full official look at, official review of this book by me, your D&D guy in the morning time. I don't know, man. I'm excited to get to talk about this, so let's dive right into it, shall we? Obviously, there will be at least some amount of story spoilers in this video for it, in this episode. Obviously, if you're listening to it, there will be the same story spoilers as if you are watching the video. So, please be aware that I will be talking about the way that the story progresses in here a little bit and a couple of other things. So just make sure that that's what you want to hear here. Okay? Okay, cool. So, getting into Call of the Netherdeep. I'm going to start off with a brief overview thought that I had as I was sitting down here, and I think it's worth saying. One of the reasons that I love Critical Role so much is that it feels like as close to an official game as you can get while still having a home game type feel, in the sense that so many of Wizards' official published adventures seem to follow a little bit more standard fantasy arcs, I guess. Like, it's not really, but I hope that makes sense. Like, Critical Role seems to break that boundary just a little bit, to me at least, and that is one of the reasons that I really love Critical Role. I like the feel of a home game that goes into it, and I don't know if it's just the Critical Role name on this book or if it is the fact that it is actually this way, but this module, to me, feels like the most dynamic one that I've read in a long time, in that it feels kind of like a home game that has been put into a book. Obviously, they have not run this campaign for everybody to see. If they have run this campaign, they did it on the side somewhere, and we don't know what the actual, result of that is. But the way that it kind of explores some random different things in here is interesting, and it might be the fact that there's a lot of Critical Role lore baked into it. Like, they talk about creation of deities and stuff like that, and it is obviously focused on Exandria, which is Matt's homebrew world, and so there is a lot of that going on as well. And the whole Netherdeep concept feels very homebrewy. It feels less like it would be an official kind of thing. Obviously, it is. You've got the whole Dungeons and Dragons tag right there on the cover, but it feels a little bit less like something you'd normally find in an official published adventure. So, all that said, I did really enjoy this book. I enjoyed it a lot. I think there's a lot of really cool aspects to it, and I'm going to walk you through kind of how this whole thing works. It works like any other module does. This runs you from levels 3 to 12, so you start out with level 3 character, and you can run them all the way up to level 12, which again is sort of the soft cap for average campaigns, so this does fall into that general frame of reference that a lot of people sort of work off of. And one of the things that I really liked about this book is that none of the chapters felt like duplicates of each other. In the sense that you were constantly moving, you were constantly going to different places, and while a lot of official modules have that travel aspect to them, these are like wholly different areas that you're going to go visit. So you start off in this tiny town. Chapter 1 is recommended to take 1 to 2 sessions. Like, they say it outright. This could be achieved in approximately 2, 3 to 4 hour sessions, because what it is a carnival followed by a race that closes out the first chapter. It's what sets up everything. And then from there, you go on essentially a globe-trotting mission. You travel not that far for the next chunk of the adventure. You go from Jigo out down into Bazazan, which, if you know anything about Critical Role's that sort of history and geography in Jorha specifically, so Campaign 2, that is the very top of the continent, essentially, the continent of Wildemount, to slightly less than the very top of the continent of Wildemount. And you spend quite a bit of time in Bazazan doing a bunch of different things in there, and then you teleport or travel to, in some capacity, Ank'Harel, which is literally the opposite side of the globe from Bazazan, and so you get a totally different aspect in that jump. There is a complete scene change, essentially, which makes it feel more home gamey to me. Because while you are following, obviously, the same storyline and you're getting these connected missions that are all directing you towards the ultimate goal of this Netherdeep area, you are globetrotting, essentially. You are jumping across the world in really kind of more ways than one a lot of the time. So the fact that you jump there, and then you jump from there to Kael Maro, which is a deep underwater city, like, you kind of run all over the place. Which I like a lot. Again, it feels home gamey. It makes the world feel more open. Obviously, they have a set track for you to follow here. However, given that you are jumping across the world to follow that track, it feels less set and more like something that you are able to do kind of freely. They have, at the end of the Bazazan chapter, they have a series of different things that are like, these are the different ways that you can get to Ank'Harel, because the players will understand at that point that that is where they need to go. And so there's like 5 or 6 different ways that you can get from Bazazan to Ank'Harel, just as an example in there. And then obviously you're jumping around, you're moving around quite a bit, following this core storyline. The core storyline is very interestingly split up into 3 sort of distinct, different chunks or threads that sort of weave their way through this core storyline, or weave their way around the core storyline, because this crew that is on the cover here is actually your crew of rivals that you are facing off against, quote unquote, through this whole thing. You are initially pitted against your rivals in the first chapter in that race, and how you interact with them there affects how the rest of the story goes with relation to them. And you sort of have these key points in the story where there are 3 different paths presented, where it's something to the effect of combative towards them, neutral towards them, and friendly towards them. And it gives you different things that could be happening when you're in those different places with relation to how you are interacting with your rivals. And it keeps track, essentially, of how some of this stuff has transpired and how that is affecting what is going on. So it does become kind of a web that you have to keep track of, but it is a really cool mechanic for a linear storyline, like an adventure module, which this is, obviously. And then, obviously, the Netherdeep is just, it's cool, right? It's cool. I like it a lot. I think it's a really cool concept. I want to use something like it in a game of mine. It's kind of like a Feywild Shadowfell kind of thing, where it's like a half step away from the material plane, but it's also not, because it is its own thing. It's kind of difficult to pin down exactly what it is, but it's really cool, and I like it a lot. I like the corruptive aspect of it. I like the way that all of these different things sort of interact with the living and the dead things that are here. And ultimately, I really am a fan of how we end up with Elixion at the end of this story, which is sort of like the big bad, quote unquote, at the very end. And also, in keeping with the 3 sort of like intertwining storylines thing, we have a we have a 3-pronged ending, essentially. There are 3 different phases that you fight Elixion in, and then you have 3 possible storylines where he is either killed outright, he is absolved, like his soul is cleaned, or he is, let me make sure I get this right. I believe it is that he is then killed outright, absolved, or everything sort of falls apart, which is three interesting things. Like, there is the suggestion at the end where if you do not successfully take him down in some capacity, you can continue to run the adventure, because then the party is going to have to figure out how to save the material plane as everything falls apart. Which obviously you don't want to happen, because that would be not great for the material plane. So, sort of the big things to take away from this one, I think, are the sort of like triple storyline that's happening, the side mirrored storyline that is going on with your rivals, because there is actually a way to run this adventure where the rivals are technically the heroes of the story, and your party, the player party, is the one that is chasing them around and trying to sort of impede their plans and take on the quest themselves. That is actually like laid out as an option in this book, which is cool. So the rivals, the intertwining stories, the three-pronged story of it all, and the globe-trotting of the whole thing makes me really, really like it. It does feel, I will say, it does feel very much like a basic kind of adventure at its core, which most of these modules are. It's kind of the small group of nobodies becomes these major heroes, and blah, blah, blah. We're done. We're good. So it's one of those things where it has to follow that kind of formula because it is an adventure module, but also I like it a lot because the skin that it puts over the top of that is a very interesting one and a very cool one to be able to work with. Plus, with the amount of world building that Matt has done, you can find things online, you can get their books, you can get all kinds of things to really flesh out all of the stuff that the players are going to be interacting with if you want to. You don't have to, obviously. You can make everything up on the fly. We don't care. He doesn't care. The Wizards doesn't care. They have your money already. You already brought the book. And so there is something really, really cool about being able to tap into that base of knowledge that I like a lot with regard to this book. I hope that if they move forward creating more of these Critical Role modules, they will be able to diverge a little bit more and follow a slightly more gray path, the way that Campaign 2 did, as opposed to Campaign 1 of Critical Role. If you're caught up on both of them, you know what I mean. Campaign 1 was very much the classic hero's journey, and Campaign 2 was a lot more gray. They had a lot more political stuff going on in it, which I don't think that anybody is super looking for a hyper-political campaign module, but it'd be cool if they were able to. I know it is difficult to do with the lack of predictability with regard to politics in D&D, but it would be really cool if we got to see them exploring different options, essentially, in the Critical Role universe through D&D adventure modules. Overall, I really do like this book quite a bit. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it has some kind of, like, not quite eldritch horror, but that general vein. It's got more of Matt's flavor in it that he's been putting into definitely Campaign 2 and definitely so far Campaign 3. It's got that kind of flavor to it where they are really sort of leaning into the grotesque a little bit more, which you can see in a lot of the artwork. If you are not watching this, I do apologize, but if you are watching it, like, this is the inside cover page. This is that shark that I was talking about the other day. It is messed up looking and really, really cool. And it's one of those things where, like, I like that flavor of thing. It is my type of D&D that I like to play. I like to lean into that kind of thing, and so if you're also into that, this is definitely a cool thing for you to check out. If you are not, there is still some pretty cool content. If nothing else, that rival mechanic is awesome. I really do like it quite a bit, and I am hoping that they do include that moving forward in quite a few different adventure modules, because I do think that it is a fascinating mechanic to get to play with. Also, it gives you a constant set of pseudo-antagonists, like people that are not necessarily actually against you because they are still working towards the same goal. But they are not necessarily helping you either. And so recurring characters are always big hits in D&D campaigns because it makes the players build some kind of connection with them. Whether they are good or whether it is a good or bad connection is up to the players ultimately. So definitely check this book out if you haven't already. If you are still on the fence about it, go flip through it a little bit at like Barnes & Noble or a game store or something like that. I recommend a game store, obviously, but if you don't have one near you, which a lot of places don't, I didn't have one for a really long time, Barnes & Noble is a good bet. Or any other of the big bookstores should be carrying this by now. So that is Call of the Netherdeep. Moving on from that, we are talking about the shows that we have today and this weekend because it is in fact Friday. We have obviously a big slate because we are covering 3 days, so let's dive into that. First up today, we have Mayhem D&D, Off the Rails, Oxventure, Just Roll With It, The Strings of Fate, Rolling with Duplicity, World of Low, and The Crowned DM. Tomorrow, Saturday, we have Dice Funk, Strange Hungers. That's a short list because I don't really know. Apparently nobody streams or publishes on Saturdays. I'm not sure why. Probably because they edit on Saturdays and then post on Sundays, because Sundays is quite a bit longer. We have Super Idols, Roll For Your Life, Grinning Griffin, Dungeon Drunks, Library of Nightmares, The Chaos Brigade, Rise of the Forsaken, Chromatic Dice, The Strodcast, and High Rollers. Please, please, please go check any of those out. Let them know that I sent you, because I'm sure at some point it'll do something. It'll mean something. But for now, it's just fun for me to be able to say. So yeah, let them know that I sent you. Add a little bit of D&D, to your weekend. There we go. But as I mentioned, that is everything I have to talk to you guys about. So thank you very much for making me part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much in particular to my patrons. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. And a reminder to my $5 and above patrons, the second episode of Sunday Brunch is this Sunday. So stay tuned for that, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Yeah, that's everything I got for you. So as ever, don't forget, drink tea, play D&D, and keep on rolling.